Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to this Logistics Manager webinar sponsored by Lucas Systems. My name is Nick Bradley, and I am the editor of Logistics Manager magazine. Once again, it's great to see so many of our readers online this afternoon. You are all very welcome. I'm also your host for this afternoon's discussion entitled Using AI-Based Travel Optimization to Double Productivity, Inside Stories from 3DCs. Staying abreast of changes in supply chain technology is almost a full-time job in itself. From robotics and automation to data analytics and the industrial Internet of Things, new technologies are emerging that have the potential to further improve how goods are shipped, handled, stored, and delivered. Artificial intelligence is one of those technologies and is creating waves of disruption across many industries, be it manufacturing or human resources. And as we all know, one of the major industries AI has penetrated today is supply chain and logistics. As we will learn over the next hour, AI is completely transforming warehouse operations with improvements in efficiency, profits, and targets. The warehouse powered by AI is one that is more responsive and dynamic. Indeed, many people view AI as a must-have tool to drive improvements in the key performance indicators that are critical to the success of your organization. So let's put this into the context of a DC. Order picking is a warehouse activity that needs to be streamlined efficiently to create a positive effect on service levels and operational costs. One way that AI can optimize the warehouse is by increasing the productivity of its workforce, especially warehouses that deal with regular pick and pack operations. Modern warehouses that deal with thousands of orders in a day could benefit from intelligent features such as pick path optimization built into their warehouse management software to reduce the costs incurred and time taken during order picking. The three facilities profiled in today's webinar include a multinational medical products distributor, a leading global 3PL providing e-commerce fulfillment and store replenishment for a major UK electronics retailer, and a US tool manufacturer shipping to big box retailers, wholesalers, and direct to consumers. Before we begin though, some quick introductions to the gentlemen who will be taking you on those three tours. First off, we have James Hartz. He's the Business Development Manager of EMEA at Lucas Systems. James has worked with a number of leading retailers, 3PLs and other companies in the UK and Europe to identify process improvement opportunities and to implement optimization solutions in their warehouses and DCs. Andrew Southgate is President of Global Business Development at Lucas Systems. Andrew has more than 25 years of experience delivering innovative warehouse optimization solutions to customers throughout the world. He currently leads the Lucas Global Business Development Organization. And finally, Carl Franklin is a solution consultant at Lucas Systems. Carl has led solution design and delivery for dozens of DC optimization projects in the USA, Europe, and Asia Pacific. And prior to joining Lucas, he held roles in international logistics and warehousing for global logistics providers. Just a bit of housekeeping before we begin. I would like to encourage all of our members of our audience to ask questions throughout the debate via the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. Please try to remember to submit your name, your job title and company when you do so. I will pose as many questions as possible to James, Andrew and Carl in the time available. And just in case you didn't know, a recording of this webinar will be made available to view on demand from tomorrow morning via logisticsmanager.com. Okay, so let's get going. What are you going to learn from today's webinar? You're going to hear about strategies for picking orders from multiple channels without creating separate process flows or picking zones. You'll find out how real-time AI-based batching can maximize pick density in each or case picking. And you'll find out how to reduce travel through pick path optimization. So with that, it's time to hand over to Kyle, James, and Andrew. Over to you guys.
Thank you for that introduction, Nick, and good afternoon, everyone. Kyle, if you could put up the first slide. On to the next one, Kyle, please. Thank you, Kyle. So our work with our customers is all about optimization of warehouse processes, and we are deploying smart applications for our customers, which utilize our AI and machine learning platform. Our data scientists are always thinking of ways AI can optimize processes, including intelligent batching, pick path optimization, dynamic slotting, and interleaving of tasks, to name but a few AI-based applications. Next slide, Kyle. Why do we have a team of data scientists working on AI-based optimization, you may ask? One of the key reasons is that customers of ours, including Johnson & Johnson, XPO Logistics, and Marcone Parts Distribution, benefit from a step change in the efficiency of their warehouse operations. Some customer examples of the process improvement gains achievable through AI-based optimization software are shown here. Pretty stellar performance examples there. And all of this without any changes to WMS or warehouse infrastructure. Our collaborative approach with our customers includes doing a pick path travel simulation for their operation to confirm the cost savings through the reduction of travel. This travel simulation is available to the audience today on this webinar at no cost. I now hand over to Kyle to talk about using AI to solve the travel challenge. Take it away, Kyle.
All right, thanks, Andrew. So Nick and Andrew have taken you through the why of why we're using these type of tools. So I'm going to take you through how we do it. Our AI-based tools consist of three main components: dynamic prioritization, path optimization, and intelligent batching. First, we will look at prioritization. Before we can get into creating efficient work, we have to respect that warehouses have priorities, be it certain types of orders, service levels, important customers, or carrier cutoff times. And these priorities shift rapidly throughout the day. Our engine, before being fed orders, considers these priorities in a just-in-time basis. So as new orders fly into the system, they are automatically slotted and prioritized appropriately. Leads have full control over changing priority over their orders as well. Because we operate on demand, when a user asks for work, they always get optimally prioritized work, even if a lead rushed an order out just seconds before. Now that we know what orders are available to pick, let's look at how we can pick each one faster. Consider the following warehouse map and a visual pick list. The blue dots are individual picks for a single order, all of which need to be picked by our RF picker there next to the start. Now we see their pick path as dictated by a WMS-driven pick sequence. In this instance, it's serpentine. The user will traverse each aisle that has picks in it, and in most cases, traveling the entire length of the aisle. In this example, they would have traveled about 934 feet, snaking through the aisles. Now let's look at the path generated by our pick path optimization engine. It uses a number of traveling salesman mathematical algorithms, crunching travel costs across a digital map of the warehouse. Now we see that we have significantly reduced travel time for our user. Instead of picking those picks at the bottom of our map in aisle sequence, we save a ton of time by grabbing those at the very end. This results in an estimated savings of about 18% for this order. As you can see here, all of this extra travel is eliminated. Now, many of us have seen really sharp pickers in action. They can find workarounds or shortcuts that can shorten that distance. But what about your newer pickers or your temporary agency workers that you just brought in? Our engine helps to democratize those shortcuts in addition to making our fastest pickers even better. So now that we've used math to build efficient routes and we know which orders can be picked based on priority, we'll look at the third component, intelligent batching. So one of the key ways that warehouses can save on travel time is by batching orders. So we now see a group of the next available orders in the system overlaid on our map. Next, we see the pick path generated by our engine to pick order number 1, which is the highest priority order in the system, traveling a distance of 432 feet. Most warehouses batch in a first in, first out manner. So the user will be assigned order number 2 to pick with order number 1 in their batch. Picking both together results in a total travel of 704 feet, which is much shorter than if they pick them separately, standard order batching. However, there is a better way. Lucas AI based tools, Lucas AI-based tools look at the pick path of all available orders in the system to help determine what the optimal batch is. Looking at the map, what order matches really well with our current pick path? So I'll leave it there for a second for you guys to see if you can find the next order yourselves. If you noticed, order number 6 in green almost matches our first expected pick path perfectly and will make a great addition to our batch. We see that only a small amount of additional travel is needed to complete both orders, resulting in 456 feet of travel to pick both orders. Consider how much greater these benefits would be once we pick batches of 4, 8, or even 20 orders. Also consider that these benefits can be leveraged not only for humans, but for robots as well. Lucas tools can help optimize your entire warehouse. So what does this tool look like? Let's take a deeper dive into some of the features and settings available in the dashboard. Here we see our main dashboard, and we get an at-a-glance view of how travel is affecting productivity around the warehouse. We see how well the last few assignments have gone down at the bottom. Now consider the priority features I mentioned earlier. They help limit what orders are considered by our batching algorithms in order to meet priority requirements of the DC. Let's take a look at some of the settings available to the operators. For any work queue, users are able to enable automated schedules to tweak priority settings or to override existing settings to meet immediate needs. Our scheduling tool allows the DC to balance priority and productivity automatically. Priority depth represents how far down the list of orders the engine can look when building batches. In this example, a DC's most pressing cutoff is right around 4 p.m. So as the warehouse gets closer to 4 p.m., our algorithms are more strict about what work is available to be included in our optimal batches. Now, after the trucks leave at 4, the site switches back to looking deeper down the list, trying to get ahead on tomorrow's cutoffs by just picking dense orders. What I love about this tool is that once the schedule is set, the operator can just forget it. No more sorting through stacks of paper lists or staring at a delivery due list trying to figure out how to meet cutoffs and balance productivity and priority throughout the day. Now, looking back at our main screen, you might be thinking to yourself, how do I know how changing priority is going to affect productivity? Because these tools are powerful, we want to give users a way to interpret and experiment with them, so we included a batch predictor. Here, I can simulate how changing my settings will influence work on the floor. I see that changing settings from picking only higher priority orders to then widening the pool and focusing on density, I should see about a 30% reduction in travel per batch, fewer aisles traversed, and lower estimated pick time. This way, it's really easy to bring simulation and AI to the operator's fingertips. Now, we know that priorities can change in a warehouse, and we don't want these rules to be rigid. So let's look at how the DC can change their own rules. In this instance, say that the FedEx pickup for the day changes to the end of the day, right behind our LTL pickup. No need to call us up to change your rules or get an internal engineer or do coding. Just reshuffle your priority codes right here on the screen. So that's what the tool looks like. That's just some of the available configuration capabilities in the product. I'll now hand it over back to James so he can talk through how these tools have been leveraged in customer DCs.
Great, thanks, Kyle. Good afternoon, everyone. So first of all, we're going to talk about a medical products distribution centre based in London, so not far away from where our offices are in Bracknell. So they were shipping products all around Europe, primarily around the UK and Ireland, but they also have a fair amount of their business based around various different European countries and regions. Their demand prior to Lucas was increasing massively at a really significant rate. And in conjunction with that, the number of SKUs that they were picking from this DC were also massively increasing as well. As a result, their travel was becoming more and more inefficient when they were trying to do batching themselves. They were doing a combination of RF scanning and paper-based picking, often trying to batch multiple paper-based assignments together using their RF process. And all of their manual batching was done by admin or supervisor staff on the DC floor at that moment in time. So their pickers were having to juggle multiple assignments and deal with that batching in a very manual process, which was becoming far more inefficient as their order volumes grew. They have to deal with multiple cutoff times as a result of them shipping around all of these different countries around Europe. Naturally, the further afield that the product needs to go, the earlier it needs to leave the distribution center to get there the next day. And as a result, this made their batching processes even more complicated as they tried to balance their priorities with having as dense batches as possible. They also saw a large number of errors as a result of this manual process. So if we now look at a little bit more detail in terms of the solution that we provided at Lucas. So as you can see here, there are various different components of the Lucas solution powered by Jennifer that we produced for this distribution center. So the AI-based travel optimization was picking into between 9 and 10 positions on a trolley at any one time, depending on the size of the orders that were being picked. There was no supervisor batching required. The Lucas solution would do all of that batching automatically. We were taking an interface to both their warehouse control system and their ERP system. And as a result, we were not only getting the pick information that we needed to utilize to create our batches, but we were also orchestrating that in conjunction with various other forms of automation that they had within the facility. That meant that once our job was complete, we could hand over to an A-frame picking system or various conveyor systems and stage that order in the appropriate location and feed that information to the warehouse control system so that those various forms of automation could continue to do what they were doing well in their areas of the DC. Like I said, there was no need for supervisors to batch anything anymore, but we still provided them through the tool that Kyle has just shown you, the ability to make alterations to any priorities or deal with anything urgent on an exception basis. They have, as I said, multiple different cutoff times, often 12, as you can see on the screen. And as a result, the priorities that we were batching to needed to flex and change incredibly dynamically across the day. And so the pool of work that was available to Lucas to create batches from would fluctuate enormously. And all of this was handled automatically by the AI-based travel optimization tool. We created dynamic batches, and the pick path optimization that we delivered reduced their travel distance enormously. You can see here that they had over an 100% increase in productivity rates in terms of their lines per hour that they were picking to. And as a result, they were able to almost half their number of pickers per shift on various days. But there were a number of other benefits that we were able to give them. Their cross-training was far easier across their different zones, and it meant that they could be far more flexible with their labor across any given day, and they could move people around various different processes and different tasks as it suited them as their operation flexed and changed, and people were able to pick up and drop assignments very easily on the Lucas solution. As a result, supervisors and admin staff were able to focus on other areas of the business that required more attention than the Lucas picking area. There were also massive reductions in errors, and the audit process saw a big reduction in the amount of work that had to go through it as well. So I'll hand back to Carl now as we look at another customer example.
All right, thanks, James. Our second example is slightly different, as this customer had a variety of different order profiles and customers that they were shipping to. Apex Tool Group manufactures and distributes hand tools and power tools for do-it-yourself, construction, vehicle service, and other industries. They operate out of one central DC in North Carolina, United States, that serves wholesale customers, big box retailers, and some direct-to-consumer orders. One of the big drivers in investing in new DC solutions was to improve accuracy and improve labor flexibility. Since they serve multiple types of customers, over the years, they have invested in a range of picking technologies, including RF and pick-to-light. They initially approached Lucas to evaluate and optimize multimodal picking technology to improve accuracy over their current RF and pick-to-light systems. On the accuracy side of things, they needed to get 100% accuracy on their orders to reduce retailer chargebacks on shipping errors. On the labor side of things, like many companies here in the US, they are facing challenges hiring workers due to low unemployment. Lastly, they wanted to replace multiple different picking technologies with a single solution so they could easily cross-train people once and move them more freely around the DC, similar to James's example earlier. Taking those considerations into account, Apex implemented the Lucas Warehouse Optimization solution throughout their DC and is using AI-based travel optimization in their cart picking area, which represented more than a third of their orders, including both B2B and B2C. One of the unique elements of their solution is that it is building batches for 3 different types of carts based on the number of lines per order and thus the number of orders per batch. So they have a 3-carton batch, a 6-carton batch, and then a 15-position batch, primarily for small line count e-commerce orders. This is a really important capability for multi-channel DCs. Rather than creating separate zones for e-com versus retail or B2B orders, you can optimize picking for all of those orders without creating a separate process or a separate pick area. In addition to that, using the Lucas Warehouse Optimization solution, they create a more user-friendly, productive, and accurate voice-directed picking process for case, each, and bulk picking across all areas of the DC, as well as implementing a new intelligent QC audit application to further eliminate errors. Using Lucas, Apex was able to pick the same volume of orders in that cart pick area with roughly half the number of working hours, while at the same time significantly reducing picking errors. They also improved productivity throughout the facility and significantly reduced picking errors through all areas of the facility, including areas that have been using RF before. So to summarize, by implementing the Lucas Warehouse Optimization software, they were able to modernize and optimize their picking processes across all order and product types, both B2B and B2C, and they did it without replacing their legacy WMS or developing a separate picking solution only for e-commerce. Again, their big driver was improving accuracy, especially for those big box retailers, and they accomplished that while also addressing their long-term hiring and labor issues. I'll hand it back over to James to share our last customer example.
Thanks, Kyle. So yes, as Kyle said, this is our third and final example that we've got for you during this presentation. So this is for a large third-party logistics company that operates globally, picking in this instance for a UK-based electronics retailer that you will all be very familiar with the name. So prior to Lucas, they were operating with an RF process. In the facility, they pick both direct to consumer and also to their retail stores from the same pick locations. And they then are staged at 2 separate packing processes for obviously either the direct to consumer goods to be packaged as you would receive it at home, or in totes shipping directly to the stores. They were suffering massively from inefficient travel and also, as the pandemic approached, very unpredictable volumes that were leading to incredibly inefficient batches for their operation. Their WMS wasn't able to batch in the ways that they wanted to and the ways that the operation were desiring. So if we look at the Lucas solution, we were batching to either three trolley positions for their direct-to-consumer picking or to 6 totes for their retail picking. We were also dealing with their volumetric data and building the cubing and weighting information into our batches in conjunction with looking at the AI-based travel optimization through both pick path optimization, batching, and the dynamic prioritization of those orders. It was a combination of voice direction and RF processes. A lot of their products require scanning confirmation to check that the serial codes are valid for that customer and that they haven't been used for a previous device or electronic component. We had a new device that we utilized and ran our software on, which was a smartwatch for their operation. So the smartwatch was the user interface for the operative to log in and out of, and also provided helpful prompts on the screen for them to look at. And this was paired with a Bluetooth headset and a Bluetooth scanner that's cordless for them to utilize for any scanning processes that they needed to do so. We had positive put confirmations, both directed verbally through the headset and also shown visibly on the scanner interface there, on the watch interface, sorry. We also interfaced into their WMS system in terms of the staging process, and that meant that we were able to dictate to the WMS and to their automated packing systems what the weights and dimensions of the orders were that they were expecting, so that their automated packing processes could flag up any exceptions at that stage in the process if there are any differences in comparison to what we were expecting from a volumetric perspective. Next slide, please, Carl. So we were able to deliver very significant productivity gains for them and greatly exceed their business case. In fact, just in the retail picking alone, we exceeded the overall 34% process improvement target for the entire facility. And so retail on its own delivered the actual picking benefits that they were expecting to see for the entire operation. And something that was very crucial to all of us was we were able to successfully go live and onboard all of the users during the first wave of the pandemic, and do all of that remotely and virtually from a Lucas perspective to minimize contact as much as possible. And pickers were still able to get up to speed within the first couple of weeks as expected and start to deliver the benefits for the business case. So that's our third and final example. Kyle, if you just flick onto the next slide again. So as Andrew mentioned at the start of the presentation, we are able to provide a no-cost travel simulation for any potential customers that are interested in the solution. This will obviously be tailored to your specific operation, dealing with batch sizes that are possible for you guys, or indeed dealing with your existing batch sizes and just looking at it from a dynamic prioritization and pick path optimization perspective as well. So if anyone is interested in that, please get in touch and we will be happy to do that for you. So Nick, I think I'm now handing it back to yourself to take any questions from the audience.
Excellent. Thank you very much, guys. That was great. So it's good to see that you gave us some firm examples there with those 3 application cases. You mentioned at the end there that you would come out and give estimates to specific potential clients. I mean, that's quite an important factor, because a potential client wouldn't know if their savings would be 20, 30, 40, 50%. So is that quite I mean, that's basically putting your money where your mouth is, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. I'll take this one. So yeah, it is to a certain extent. Obviously, there are various factors as well that we need to consider with our customers that can fluctuate between customer example, but we deliver a simulation that is as tailored as possible to the specific customer that we're working with, and work with them to come to a business case that obviously is as aggressive as we want to be, but is also obviously as attainable as possible. And the simulation tool is a really good way to examine that and to give us an indication of what the potential benefits may be. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we routinely work with all of our prospects to do that using the simulation tool. We ask our customers to share some historical data on their current batching, their current travel sequence processes, maybe a week or 2 of data, and the warehouse layout, any specific rules that we need to take into consideration And yeah, that's what we then use to deliver what the benefits may be, and give our customers some kind of estimation as to what they could be looking at.
Yeah.
And that tool is actually just the front end piece of the actual AI engine that we utilize. And the reality is the AI tool is actually far more sophisticated than we can ever get just the simulation tool to deliver. And we're always looking at delivering far greater benefits than we actually end up simulating.
I mean, the examples you gave there were companies doing each picking to carts. Does it only apply to those types of distribution centres? Are there companies doing case picking operations, for instance?
It can be any. So we have customers that are doing each picking to cart. We have customers that are picking cases. We can utilise just the pick path optimization side of it, for example, if we have very structured and rigid batches from the WMS already. So it obviously can cater to various different operations. Typically, we would obviously see the greater savings in the operations where we can batch more product and more orders together, and the more flexibility we have. But there's still very significant savings that can be seen for even case pick to pallet processes, for example.
I mean, is this a solution for all types of size of operation, or I can see the benefits for a massive scale distribution center, but can those benefits still be realized if you're a smaller outfit?
Yeah, so actually, a couple of the examples that we utilize today, I wouldn't say that their warehouses are big by any means. In fact, some of the actual pick floors that we're picking on are pretty small in comparison to a lot of our customers. Kyle, Andrew, I don't know if you've got any other comments on that or any other examples to give, but just from my perspective, I would say that actually the two examples that I was talking about were pretty small in terms of the overall picking floor area.
Yeah, so we look at everything from an ROI perspective, right? So bigger DCs have, and bigger labor savings tend to have greater opportunities to more quickly produce ROI. But as James mentioned, the two of the examples we gave today were relatively small, and they were still able to achieve fast ROIs using these tools. So Lucas historically as a company has dealt with the biggest ones in the world, the biggest companies, and also many of the smallest. That was kind of our roots in dealing with legacy WMSs, some antiquated technology and smaller DCs, and trying to help those guys as well. So yeah, big and small, we can figure it out.
Excellent. Just wanted to remind our viewers that if you've got any questions, there's a couple of questions here, but just use your name, your job title, and your company as well, and I can pose those to the guys. What if we're not batch picking? Can we still use this tool for pick path optimization?
Yeah.
If you can, yeah. Sorry, go on, Carl.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. So just that first component of the pick path optimization and managing the priority rules, we can definitely do without batching. And we typically see reasonably good productivity results without batching. So, case pick to pallet and other more bulk pick operations, we can do it there. We've also been able to implement interleaving to help with, say, pallet picking, interleaving that with pallet put away. And that can provide some travel savings with the pick path optimization without necessarily having to do batching.
Okay.
Sorry, Nick. Yeah, so we gave a couple of picking examples, but like Kyle said, it can be used for other processes as well in the DC, not just for picking processes. Naturally, picking is where we tend to see most of our customers have availability for labor savings, so that's where we often go in first, but it can be used for various different processes.
How recent is this solution of yours? I mean, have you seen more interest in the past 15 months for obvious reasons?
So that's a good question, actually. I think it's around about 5 years old, really, in terms of when our first customers started to go live, or we started to get into testing phases with them. So naturally, our interest is increasing all the time. it can lend itself in much of our customer examples to e-commerce facilities. So naturally, those customers of ours that have looked to get more online over the past 15 months or so, they've obviously seen more demand for a solution like this. But yeah, probably over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, we've been seeing a lot more interest anyway, prior to the pandemic.
Any of the other guys want to add to that one? Andrew?
Yes, we've seen a trend upwards in terms of deployments of our AI-based software, and interest in talking to us because of obviously labour shortages. Obviously, a lot of customers are suffering from availability of the right labour and the right volume of labour at this time. Certainly over the last 12 to 18 months. So yes, it can make a dramatic improvement in labour cost savings, as we've articulated. So over the last 12 to 18 months, I would say that there's been the sharp peak in interest and deployments.
Kyle?
Yeah, it's strange. Like, definitely, as people say, they're slammed now. They're wondering, how can I get these orders out? That's, adding to the increasing inbound leads for sure. But, one of the examples James talked about, they're, medical device, and I've worked on a number of medical device distributors. So it almost operated like an e-commerce solution without the e-commerce part. It's, hospitals ordering, people ordering themselves. So parcel, any kind of, parcel shipments lend itself really well to those batching processes. So you've seen an increase, but like I said, for years, and James mentioned earlier, this tool has been out in production for a number of years, and we've just seen a variety of different use cases be able to add a lot of value.
In terms of the software itself, when does it make the calculations and build the batch pick assignments? Is it fixed times throughout the day, or when new orders are coming in, or a new wave of orders is released, etc.?
So one point of difference from what I've seen in other batch picking systems is typically, as you alluded to, batches are made on a batch job method. So every hour or so, new jobs or groups of work are created or new waves. Ours works completely on demand. So when a picker says get work, we look at the equipment that they have and the orders in the system, taking account all those priorities, the map of the warehouse, to give them an on-demand brand new batch. So that if a supervisor a couple minutes before decided that this order was high priority, that would be included in the next batch. So we know that things change in the warehouse rapidly, and we want to be flexible to support that. So everything runs on demand. The algorithms run in sub-seconds, and to provide the best result.
What if a worker in the DC wants to skip an aisle or location, is out of stock? How does that affect the calculations that software is generated for you?
Yep. So it does support that. So we know that the pallet driver is putting away product in an aisle, and the picker can't pick there. So they have a number of navigation commands, such as skip aisle or reverse pick list, that helps them navigate around roadblocks. And the system dynamically recalculates their pick path, taking into account their start and end point, to still provide them optimally balanced work. Obviously, when we skip an aisle or skip a pick, we always make the user come back to it. We don't want them just to send off unfinished work. But the system does account for that. That's been a part of our standard solution for a number of years.
What about for products in multiple locations? Can the software, I don't know, issue a best location option to optimize that batch?
We have help with things like that, but typically what we do is we draw the lines where if your WMS does that, inventory allocation, we don't manage inventory. We're not the system of record for, the vast majority of our customers. So the WMS says pick it from this location. We take that as gospel. But if they do give us a number of alternates, which some customers do, we can use these tools to balance that.
when I first got into publishing in late 90s, I worked on a magazine focusing on industrial handling and storage. Now, the sort of technologies that we're talking about today, machine learning, augmentation, automation, robotics, I mean, it's just science fiction. Where do you see these sorts of technology? I mean, what do you think the DC of the future is going to look like? You know, even 5-10 years down the line. That could be to you, any of you, actually.
I'll start. I'm going to kick it over to Andrew. You know, one major change we've seen is we were the first warehouse automation voice picking company to deliver products on Android. You know, many years ago, 2014, 2015. We saw that because we saw the industry going towards that. Consumer products made things cheaper, such that we could start to deliver really good ROIs on Android devices. So, and then later we began to leverage the speech recognition engines that people have on consumer devices. So as people get increasing technology in their own lives, we see those be leveraged in more creative and powerful ways inside the warehouse. So, you know, everyone's getting more AI-based tools to kind of give them reminders and things like that. We're hoping to build that into and working on currently in our pipeline to build in, workforce management planning. So how do I know when I'm going to be done picking all my orders today? How do I know because it's a Tuesday, I normally get a larger order volume from, my, far away, bars, in this case for wine and spirits distributor. So workforce planning is using machine learning to make determinations on what labor I need to get through the work, what time I'm going to finish, where can I shift users around to help operators think ahead. So help to not miss those things that they haven't considered, like, it's October, November, weather's starting getting bad. I'm going to have a different order mix than I would have before. So things like that is one of the main things we're looking at and working on. Andrew, James, anything else you guys think about?
Yes, I think we're seeing the optimum mix of technologies in warehouses going forward. So for example, the ideal mix of robotics, automation, obviously digital AI-based software solutions from companies like ourselves, basically orchestrating the work and the load balancing between robots, users, and automation. Around 50% of our projects go in with our optimization software with automation systems in some shape or form. So we have the ability through our AI-based software to orchestrate all the different systems and get the most out of the processes in the warehouse using a mix of technology. So that's what we're working on currently with our customers.
Yeah, and I'm seeing the same really. When I'm speaking to customers, more and more are wanting that sort of blend of technologies. I think there's a lot more demand from customers looking at trying to find that perfect mix, as opposed to just paying for one software solution or WMS solution or whatever it may be to deal with everything and to manage everything. I think people are starting to look at what that blend of technologies may be and try and work out what the best technologies are in tandem and in combination with each other. And like Andrew said, we're seeing more and more implementations that are going live in conjunction with robotics or in conjunction with various forms of automation. And I think that will only continue, but I think it's definitely a case of finding that right mix and that right blend.
As I'm talking to you guys now, we're on both sides of the pond here. Are there any specific nuances between the two markets? Is one further ahead than the other? I'm not pitting the UK against America here, but
I think Andrew's probably got the best view of that, I think.
Yeah, I have the advantage of obviously working on both sides of the pond. I only see similarities really. I don't see any huge differences, in terms of customer requirements on either side of the pond. What I do see is labor shortages are even more critical in North America right now. So that is one factor, which is driving obviously the market to look at, the AI-based software, digital automation, let's call it that, plus automation and robotics. So I think obviously the scale of North America is huge, but I see the labor shortages being particularly acute over here as being the only real difference in terms of the market interest at the moment in getting the right mix of technologies in the warehouse.
In terms of our solutions as well, it's a bit of a, I guess, more of a stereotypical view of North America in some ways, but we generally see everything as being bigger in the States than over here. Naturally, there's a lot more space and a lot more people to ship to, and so DCs often end up being bigger in North America than in the UK. So I guess when it comes to AI-based travel optimization, that can mean different things for the two different markets. Obviously, we can be dealing with a larger surface area of pick floor in North America because product is more spaced out, and it might be a bigger DC, which obviously can lend itself to a tool such as this. But then on the flip side, we're dealing with, in the UK, in a smaller DC, for example, we're dealing with far more intricate pick paths, far more rules and far more different considerations that have to be taken into account, which is where a tool such as this can really come into its own, because it's dealing with all of those factors very intelligently and dynamically. So I don't think it necessarily, the differences don't necessarily favor itself to the tool in one way or the other, but it's interesting ways that we've seen the tool have to deal with different types of facilities, different types of pick floors, and indeed different types of pick processes as well.
Yeah, and just to add to James's point, something I noticed working over in the UK and EMEA and spending a lot of time over in APAC, when you have smaller DCs in the different countries and borders, and especially when we're talking about like medical devices and things like that, you might have to have a number of smaller DCs rather than one centralized one that can serve an entire market. And that's where you start to look and say, am I going to buy expensive automation 7 times, for all of these smaller depots versus something like a voice picking process or another more manual, flexible solution is one thing that kind of lends itself to ROI, because I can buy one multi-site, multimodal solution that I can pick up and drop in multiple places rather than put 7 different conveyors and controllers and all the extra infrastructure there.
Okay. I think that's about all we've got time for this afternoon. That brings us to the end of this Logistics Manager webinar. I would like to thank James, Andrew, and Kyle for joining us this afternoon. I'd also like to thank Lucas Systems for sponsoring today's webinar, which will be available to view on demand tomorrow morning on logisticsmanager.com, in case you'd like to refer that to a colleague and share it with a colleague, other people in your company. I'd like to thank everybody who's watched this afternoon as well and taken part in the proceedings. As you can see on your screen right now, Intralogistics, the UK's premier intralogistics and materials handling exhibition, will take place on the 1st and 2nd of July at the Rico Arena in Coventry. And Lucas Systems will be exhibiting at the exhibition. I believe you're on stand 810. Everything is still pointing to the UK finally coming out of the other side of this pandemic. The vaccinations programs have been very successful so far. I think about 39 million people have had the first dose. That's about 75% of the adult population, and more than 25 million have had a second dose. I've had one and it hurt. Lockdown restrictions are easing bit by bit, and as we've said before, the UK government has already stated that exhibitions can take place from the 17th of May, where they are controlled indoor events of up to 1,000 visitors or 50% of the venue's capacity. All being well, from 21st of June, there will be no restrictions whatsoever on numbers or capacity. So we're anticipating a very, very special atmosphere, and I look forward to meeting you there. You can find out about our 150 exhibitors in the June edition of Logistics Manager, shameless plug, which came out yesterday. That's it. That's all I've got time for. We've come to the end. Thank you all for attending today's session. I'm Nick Bradley, and I will see you again soon. Take care.